Hello, everyone. I'm Deb Luster.
And I'm Sarah Luster. This is episode 5 of the Luster Leadership Series. This series explores AEC industry trends, highlighting the voices of industry leaders and examining how COVID-19 has impacted jobs and the workplace.
Today, we are interviewing Geoffrey Johnson. Jeff brings more than a decade of experience working in community relations and engagement in transportation issues. His work has spanned policy analysis, project management, community planning, and direct constituent and business engagement. With much of his work based in the East Bay and Oakland, he is well acquainted with the political landscape as well as the area's key stakeholders involved in transportation policy, planning, and advocacy. In fact, he's been involved in politics by working for a congresswoman, and on a political campaign. During the last several years, Jeff focused much of his attention on the 232 million AC Transit East Bay Bus Rapid Transit Tempo dedicated 9.5 million bus lane project. Wow. So with all of those typos in my language.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks so much for meeting with us today for the 5th episode of the Luster Leadership Series. Now that we've gotten some background information on what you do as a community engagement manager, can you tell us some of the challenges you face when developing public engagement plans in a race and equity environment?
I think one of the things, and like I said, I have a couple of notes, is sort of when you look at an area, the first and foremost is you want to figure out who is your audience, who is the community. And that is really important because you need to figure out, who are the stakeholders, the community-based organizations, and, the businesses, faith-based organizations, and the residents, because those are very, very different individuals with different needs. Now, equity now has become sort of the new phrase in terms of reaching out to people. And what that means is what a lot of, like, for example, the city of Oakland has a race and equity department. And one of the projects that I'm working on is it's the first major project in Oakland where race and where equity is the major lens in terms of community outreach. The challenge is making sure that the unheard voices are being heard. As an example, in the past, when we do outreach, we go to what are called CBOs, community-based organizations that represent the community. They have many lenses, and we talk to them, and we sort of look at them as a way to connect to the community. But now with this equity lens, people want to make sure that clients, municipalities, they want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. So as an example, there have been times when you can go and talk to the community-based organizations, but sometimes they will drown out the other voices. So we want to bring the voices to the table who haven't been heard and make sure that everyone is heard, because sometimes you can go talk to an organization and think that they represent the community, and that might not necessarily be the case. So, I was joking with Robert Luster about time. Used to be a saying when I was a kid about, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force the horse to drink the water. But now with this equity lens, it's like you got to bring the horse to the water and try to convince the horse to drink the water, because that's what equity is now. Is like you have to go the extra mile in terms of getting everybody to participate, understanding the demographics and the history of a location in terms of what is the political history of a particular area and what has gone on in the past and what is the legacy of that. And knowing that legacy when you start when you're doing your community engagement, because you can't, if you are going to an area and you don't know the history of an area, it's hard for you to do outreach. And having humility, coming to the table and saying, what, I don't know this community that well. Who are some of the stakeholders that can help me? If I will, I can give you an example if that's okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So for the city of Oakland, Lester had been asked to do some outreach for what is called the San Antonio Park Master Plan Project. And part of this project is what they want to do. The city of Oakland has their oldest fire station or firehouse, and it's been at this location in Oakland for 100 years. And they want to, the idea of this master plan project is to relocate the fire station to a local park, which has caused all kind of interesting feedback from the community. So as part of this equity lens, I had a conversation because I didn't know this area. I didn't know the San Antonio Park area in Oakland, even though I'm from Oakland. So I spoke to a lady to sort of get an idea of what are some of the groups that I needed to target. Who do I need to talk to? And this lady gave me an old school education. She sort of gave me a history. Now this woman, she's has disabilities. She uses a wheelchair, and those are sort of the groups that we need to bring to the table. So she sort of gave me a history of the LGBT community, the objectives and the goals and the history. She also gave me a schooling on a group. It's called the BIPOC, the BIPOC. They're known as, it's an acronym. It's Black Indigenous People of Color. That's a group that I was not familiar with, and she sort of told me the history of these folks and their needs. And then she also told me there was a Netflix movie called Crip Camp, and she told me to go watch that. Now, what that, and I watching it, was very fascinating. That was basically the history of the disability movement, which led to the President George Herbert Walker Bush signing the 1990 American Disabilities Act. And it talked about the history of this summer camp where these folks used to go with disabilities, and they realized that no one was serving their community, and they grassroots organizations, and how this organization and this movement sort of apex with the signing of this act in 1990. And so she was sort of kind of getting me an idea of like who these organizations are, what they are, their goals, their objectives, and sort of saying, Jeff, these are sort of the people that you need to, in our area, her being the San Antonio Park area, these are some of the organizations that you need to, if you're serious about equity, these are the people that you need to sort of reach out to and talk to and see what they think about this idea. So that's pretty, I mean, I don't know if I need to give it.
What I really like about what you just said is I grew up in Oakland too, but Oakland so well, but you didn't know this region, and each region, you can't just throw, like you said, humility. You want to ask the question to really understand each neighborhood that you are actually affecting, and you're really listening and understanding the people. And that's a very special talent, and also extraordinarily important to, whenever you're going to be affecting the community, to understand what they care about and who they are, and if this is going to be something that you can actually do with their support and their feedback, actually. So fantastic.
Yeah, it sounds like you really need to be in tune with the community you're working with, and part of your job is uncovering some of the marginalized voices, or some of the members who might not, their voices not might be heard as much. So that's a wonderful skill to have, and it's wonderful that you're engaging all parts of the community and not just the stakeholders or the people that you would typically talk to. You're really kind of like a detective and kind of uncovering what the true pulse of the community is. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, it is a detective. It is law and order. I mean, because basically you talk to one person, you talk to one person and they'll say, Jeff, you need to talk to this person. You need to email this person, because you really want to get, I mean, if I could use physiology or biology as a metaphor, everyone wants to get at the arteries, but you need to get into the veins. You got to get into the cracks and the crevices, because it's really important, because and I know we'll talk about this later, because I always looked at it as I want people to come to me with their questions and or their anger, whatever it is, because when they start going to elected officials and the mayor and council members and the media, you don't know where that's going to go.
Right.
So, I try to create those, get in there and learn the community and let them know I'm here, I'm honest, and go from there. I don't want to, because I know some of these other, I don't want to get into too many other stuff because I know there's other questions. So I'm just gonna,
Yeah.
I'll stop there for that.
I mean, I think that your answer was a great segue into the next question that we had, which is, why does public engagement need to be a push and pull of exchange of concerns, ideas, and sharing of project information?
Well, I start off with the 3 T's for me personally: trust, truth, and transparency. And when people know that you're authentic, you get a bunch of respect. I mean, because I would always tell people, look, I might not always have the right answers, but I'm going to be truthful to you and I'm going to go and get the answer. And when people know that you're honest and you're a straight shooter, it goes a long way. Now, getting to your point, the reason why this is important is because, and I'm learning this because when I worked on the BRT, that was one of the first projects that I had ever worked on. And a lot of the project engineer says, Jeff, this is great that you're working on this because this is not normal here, the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. And we dealt with a lot of what was called, and Robert knows this, unforeseen conditions. And he says, what does that mean? So when you're out here, and like I said, I don't have an engineering background, but a lot of this infrastructure and stuff was put into place for FDR during the New Deal. And so now you're getting out here, and so you got these new projects, new infrastructure, 21st century infrastructure, interfacing with 20th century infrastructure. And a lot of times, stuff when the construction teams start digging stuff up, they call it USA markings, meaning that they know what's under the ground and it's marked a certain color. Blue is for water, so on, so forth, so on and so forth. But many times when they dig this stuff up, they find infrastructure that they have no idea what it is. What is this pipe? Who owns it? Is it active? Does it work? And while the engineers are over figuring out, and Caltrans and PG&E and figuring out what the action plan is to mitigate this, I personally have to go to the stakeholder and say, look, I know I told you that we were going to be doing this construction and this is the timeline, but this is, we have a new timeline because they need to figure this out. And then I says, well, Jeff, why didn't they know what was under there before they dug it up? That makes no sense to me. I go to the doctor and I get an x-ray. Why come you guys can't x-ray the ground and figure out what's under the ground before the roadway, before you dig it up? So I sort of have to sort of nuance that and manage that and handhold and do all that other stuff. And then I got to go back another week and say, well, you know what? We thought it was going to be this week, but at this point, we don't know. And then it turns out there'll be like 5 or 6 weeks and they won't see any work. And then they get upset and then they get angry. So so I have to sort of, the day-to-day push and pull of like hand holding them and sort of walking them through this and sort of being that presence to be like, doing that presence and sort of kind of like walking them through it. I could give you an example if is that okay if I give you an example?
Sure.
So in San Leandro, we were building a curbside station for the BRT. And we built it, one of our curbside stations that we built was in front of the Carlton Senior Living Facility. It's a it's the Tesla of senior living facilities. They do everything here, like dementia. So most of the folks who are sitting their parents here, they're lawyers, they're doctors, they got resources. And when we were building this station, we had one of these unforeseen conditions. And we had an open hole in front of this facility construction site for about 5 months. And so some of the seniors, they could not take their normal day-to-day walks. We had visually impaired people who were having problems with this. And I had to go and talk to the executive director every day. She would call me, Jeff, what's going on? We had to have meetings with the mayor, the primary contractor, O.C. Jones, the engineers from the city of San Leandro. Had to facilitate all these meetings because they were like, look, what is going on here? And eventually we got it fixed. And the moral of the story is that San Leandro Times, a newspaper, they had got wind of this, and they called the executive director and said, well, we want to write a story about how the BRT is impacting the community and there's no communication. And the executive director says, well, you know, Jeff has been out here every day. He's been communicating with me, and I know that the contractors have screwed up, but he has been talking to me. And then she called me and says, hey, Jeff, look, the San Leandro Times wants to do a hit piece on you guys. I'm giving you a heads up that the San Leandro Times is calling, and I'm not going to talk to them. And that was because I had established a relationship with them. I had gone out there with my tail between my legs. There were times I had no information. It was just me just going out there saying, you know what, look, I'm sorry. I don't have anything new. But it was just because they saw me. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we talked about, and I got this from Laura Luster, is that your first interaction with a stakeholder should be positive and not negative. So in other words, I would go out there with your spouse's name, with your pet's name. I knew a guy had a business. He liked to go scuba dive, so that they got a chance to know me. So when the you know what hit the fan and things went bad, they knew me. They knew that they could call me, and I was a conduit for information to the construction management team and the primary contractor. That even though we might not have an answer, they knew that they would be heard, and I would come out there and I would get their questions to the right person. So,
wow. Well, you've actually show you care, you become a friend, and basically you're massaging the whole thing through.
Exactly.
Because you truly are communicating by knowing who they are and really hearing them. And also things like what would have happened in the San Leandro Times could have destroyed the entire project. So your ability actually kept that project going forward. Plus you kept the stakeholders happy. And that's a huge, I mean, I think that there's a lot that's missing, you know, like that link, that personal touch link has been missing in our community. And the fact that you're bringing it to life. Thank you so much. And you know, from all the things you're doing, and this is another question we had, because you sounds like you do so much good work. What is the most gratifying aspect of your work on the AC Transit BRT program, for instance?
I think the most gratifying thing right now is like when I am driving with my family, my son, because my son's 13 years old, and he sort of thinks he knows more than me now. So now dad doesn't know anything. You know, I used to change his diapers and get him goldfish crackers and stuff. And now he's 13 years old and he's listening to rap, and he thinks he's trying to tell me who the Notorious B.I.G. is. But that's a whole nother story. But just being able to drive through Oakland and tell my family that, hey, look, I worked on that. I helped build that legacy. And just all the commendations that I'm getting now in terms of our team, from the, you know, for example, Ryan Russo, who is the executive director of the Department of Transportation in Oakland, he sent me a commendation because he saw the work that we were doing in downtown Oakland, because the BRT went 9.5 miles. And very recently, I'm pretty sure Laura told you that for the 32nd Annual Transportation Achievement Awards for the California CTF, the California Transportation Foundation, the Luster team was a finalist in 2 categories for the Bus Transit Project of the Year and the Public Outreach Program of the Year. We actually got nominated for that. That was a virtual award ceremony that happened about a couple of weeks ago. And while we didn't win, the fact that the Luster team has gotten recognized for that work, and Beverly Green, who is the executive director of marketing and for AC Transit, said that this project, because we're the first BRT, really one of the first dedicated bus lane projects in Northern California, and all these nominations for the work that we did, there's a chance that the people in DC might want to come out and take a look at it. So just the recognition of this legacy project that I worked on it, and I can see it, and people are writing it. I think that's really
you're creating a prototype for potential future projects where people really get heard, and you get to basically write the script for that, or write the program. And that is, you know, you're able to really lift not just Luster, but yourself, and
Yeah.
really make things happen, because we know that there's going to be a lot of infrastructure that's going to be going into
Yes.
that. There's huge, large infrastructure projects that are going to need people like you, or just you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which means you're going to have to be visiting a lot of different projects every day.
Yeah. 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 No, that's really great. I mean, it really is. I mean, I was taking my son goes to school in Berkeley, and so we were on the freeway, and I saw this. They call it the tempo. I saw a bus. It looks like the BRT bus was going somewhere to do something, and it was just going on the freeway. And I told my son, I said, "Hey, look, there's one of our buses. There's one of our tempo coaches." So it's just great to see.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the next question is a question we ask everybody that has come through the series, especially given the last 15 months, 16 months. At the end of each interview, we're asking how the pandemic has impacted them. And you talked a little bit about like this virtual celebration, this virtual award series, and then you have a lot of hands-on. I mean, you were like face-to-face with people. So how has COVID changed the way you work? And what we like to do is give us the roses, which is the best parts, the thorns, which are kind of the rough part, and Buzz, what you like, what you don't like, and what you are looking forward to after coming through COVID. And we're getting closer, but we're not.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I think for me, the pros is it gave me a more of a connection, a link with my family, in terms of my son, and I was able to sort of participate more in terms of taking him to school. And if I was working late, let's say, for example, it was 5 o'clock and I was working on something, I didn't have to sort of do that pre-COVID thing. It's like, okay, what is my commute going to be like home? Are the buses, are the trains? Is it raining? I was able to just like focus down and just work, work until I wanted to finish, and be like, if my wife said, "Oh, dinner's ready," I could just like pause it, go downstairs and eat dinner and come back if I wanted to. Now the other side of it, and I talked, me and Sherry Schweitzer, who's the new VP for Luster, her and I had talked about this briefly. Prior to the COVID, the shelter in place, when we were using brick and mortar, there was a spontaneity. And what I mean by that, there was cooler talk.
Yeah.
I could go to the water cooler to fill up my water jug and sort of like bounce ideas off of my coworkers.
Yes.
In terms of like, hey, I'm dealing with this stakeholder, or the mayor's asking me this. What do you think about that? Also, I mean, as hard as it is to believe, I'm working on 2 projects right now, and I have not met my colleagues or the clients in person at all. And I find that's really sad that I've been working on these projects.
Really unusual for you.
Very unusual for me, because prior to the pandemic, I was out in the community walking. I mean, I was probably walking 2 to 5 miles a day, just being out there talking to people and businesses and stakeholders and elected officials. And now we're in this virtual reality, and I'm one of those old school people. Like, when you see a person face to face in person, their body language, their eyes, their vibes, there's something to that, as opposed to looking at somebody on a screen.
Yeah.
And just being able to sort of just I don't know, shake somebody's hand, or I used to go to the senior facilities, and these old school ladies who were back in the day, 80 years old, who are they're at the age now where they just say what they say and do what they do, and they want to come up and hug me and tell me things, and I kind of miss that. And the other side of the public, when I would go to work, is like I would use commuting to work, like on a bus or a train, as a way to sort of mentally review things, get myself in the right frame of mind in terms of what I had to do for the day, in terms of, okay, I'm on my bus ride going to work, let me get my mind together. And when I would be out in the public with people I didn't even know, I would be talking about my projects.
Yes.
I remember I don't want to go too far down the road, but I remember a couple of years ago, my family, we took a trip to Atlanta and New Orleans. And when we were in New Orleans, we were on this tour bus going to ride the airboats to see the alligators. And I was sitting on the back of this tour bus talking to this guy about BRT. He was interested in my project, you know, because we got to talking. We were talking about the BRT and dedicated bus lanes in the Bay Area. And I was like, I'm sitting on the back of a tour bus in New Orleans going to see alligators, and I'm talking about the BRT. So I don't get those in this COVID environment. You don't get those, and you don't get those opportunities to really like sort of talk to people and engage people and I know we're coming out, but it's really tough, you know.
Yeah.
So,
do you think things will change, or what do you think we're going to take from COVID that you're going to hold on to from this experience versus the new norm? What's the new norm look like for you as far as the reemergence?
I think one of the new norms, and you guys are going to think this is kind of weird. So when I worked for city council, my boss was the city council president. She had many pet peeves, as many narcissistic elected officials do. Her pet peeve is that if you're sneezing and if you're coughing, I do not want you to play hero. You have these sick days for a reason, so you take your butt home and get well. So I think as we move forward, I think working from home is going to be part of the calculus. Yeah. And as we get into brick and mortar, this whole sort of, I'm going to play hero and come to work half sick, sneezing and coughing on people, I think that's not going to be acceptable anymore. I think if you're coming to work coughing and sneezing and I'm going to be the hero, I'm going to show you that I'm just, I'm a mark, I think that is done. I think if people are coughing and sneezing, people are going to feel more comfortable to be like, maybe you should go home and not come to work coughing and sneezing. We don't want you playing hero, and particularly now that everything with what has gone on. So
yeah. So well, I think we're going to be at the other side of this sometime in the near future, and we'll have some sort of hybrid between going places and but like you, I think Sarah and I have missed like just being in the world, talking to people. I talk to everybody that I meet, as Sarah knows. And I miss it, I think that, so I'm really excited that to be coming through to the other side soon. And I really appreciate the way that you engage with people and how you lift the projects just by being with your personal touch. You just like by being present. And we really appreciate these words of wisdom, and that you work with us. We're really excited about the opportunity to see more of this kind of engagement, and that you are setting up an example and lifting this work up as an example of how to really lift and work with communities and stakeholders.
Well, it's interesting because we would have our weekly, so for the BRT, we had our weekly construction meetings every Tuesday. It would be the engineers, the program designers, and we had everybody at the table, all the heavy David Wilkins, everybody. And it took them a long time to understand that the outreach team was just as important as the program engineers, the project designers, because without us, it wasn't going to go. I mean, because, you got all these people, these engineers and designing stuff, and they didn't understand that this is not Legos. You can talk about putting it together, like I'm working with my son with Legos when he was a kid. But when you go out into the community and you have these plans and you have traffic control, and traffic control is how you redirect traffic when they're building something, and you have it designed a certain way, and then you put it out in the community, it's the outreach team that's got to go out there and talk to people about and get the feedback to bring it back to the team so that the project can continue. Because there was many times where the city of Oakland says, wait a minute, we got this amount of feedback, shut it down. Until you resolve this, shut it down.
Exactly.
In the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was like, okay, we could work 24 hours a day and get it done because no one was on the street. But what was happening is the first responders, they were sleeping during the day, and they would call us up and say, hey, wait a minute, we're the first responders. We can't sleep if you guys are drilling and stuff in the middle of the day because we're sleeping.
Right.
So it was just a really, it's for the outreach team and people like me and others to go out there and understand the nuances of the community and realize like, okay, it's one thing to have these construction plans, but when where the rubber hits the road, it's a different animal out in the community. So, that sort of thing.
Well, you're bringing an EQ to the IQ, like it's really the emotional intelligence that's needed to actually make this through. And a lot of the engineers are like, they're data driven and their heads are down, and you're bringing the head up. And well, we so appreciate your time today that you've spent with us and teaching us and communicating with us about all the different things you do. And we look forward to hopefully future conversations with you.
Oh, for sure. I appreciate it. Still learning. You're learning
We're
something
always
new
still
every
learning.
day.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
All right. Appreciate it.